Natalie has quite a history in environmental issues. She got her studies at UA in environmental science and in more. She worked straight out of college, went to the Pima Department of Environmental Quality doing emissions inventory work. She graduated from there to Pima Association of Governments, a nonprofit association of the municipalities in our county. She was an air quality planner, looking at things relative to transportation in particular. Taking time off to raise two of her children. She got involved with organic gardening and serves on the board of the Organic Gardens of Tucson, or Tucson Organic Gardeners. And she tomorrow will be celebrating her second year back at PDQ as a senior program manager for outreach and education. She was recognized in 2022 as one of the emerging sustainability leaders by Arizona Forward. And we're very excited to hear from Natalie this evening to share with us what air quality is about and why it matters. If you care about life, you care about air quality. So, Natalie, we're looking forward to listening and then conversing with you.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. So I'm going to do a presentation for you today about air quality in Pima County. I'm going to just go to the next slide here. These are the topics I'm going to cover. This is the building I'm in right now. This is where our office is located downtown. So we're going to talk about air quality in Pima County. So I'm going to go through some of the facets of what we do as a department with respect to air quality monitoring. I'm going to talk about the different pollutants of concern. And I will just say that this particular presentation is focused on air pollution, which is separate from climate change pollution, even though they often come from the same sources. This particular discussion is really not going to focus on climate change so much, but if you have any questions afterwards about how that relates to this, then I'd be happy to answer those. And also, if you, I am able to see your faces on my other screen. So if you have questions as I go along, just feel free and raise your hand, and I'd be happy to answer them as we go through.
Natalie, Millie has made an observation. She is seeing the presentation mode of your show rather than, she's seeing sort of the presenter's mode rather than the presentation mode.
Okay, I think I have too many screens open is the problem here. Let me.
Okay, there you go. That looks like what you want.
Can you stop sharing my screen, because I'm having the same problem. I'm going to reshare it. Are you able to do that for me?
Trace, I think she'd like you to bump her off momentarily.
I think I just have too many of them open is the problem. Okay, give me a moment here. I'm sorry. I really just need to have one open. Okay. Okay, and then I'm going to just do slideshow and from beginning. Okay, are you seeing the full screen now?
No.
You're not?
No show.
Oh, you're not seeing anything?
Correct.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Only everybody.
What's going on with me
Here
today? Okay, is that full screen?
It said double click to enter full screen, and
what I'm seeing is different than what you're seeing. That's very odd.
We're seeing the slides down the side as well as
we're getting the presenter mode, and the first one is air quality in Pima County.
Are you sharing, Natalie, your screen versus your PowerPoint? Sometimes that you get fooled. Like you click on when you have choices and share, you see your PowerPoint on the thing that's your screen. If you click on screen, then we'll see your whole screen instead of just what you want.
I'm not sure what's going on with that. Okay.
Well, we're all practicing our mindful waiting here. It's a good practice. Can
Okay.
check
I
our
don't- if
posture,
this
check
doesn't
your
work, I'm
alignment.
not sure. I mean, if this doesn't work, I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to follow it. Does that look like a full screen?
Well, it's better. Maybe we should just continue this way if you can't get it any bigger. 'Cause
Yeah, I
we're
think I'm gonna have to, because I'm seeing it as a full screen, so I don't know why that's happening with you. So I'm sorry.
Okay.
Um,
it's legible.
okay, good. So I'll talk about the sources of air pollution. I'll talk about some of the health effects of air pollution, and then of course the actions to reduce air pollution. And then I want to give you all some resources where you can find and receive air quality information, talk about our Cut Down Pollution Lawn and Garden program, and then talk about our This is Clean Air Challenge, which is happening this month of May. So that's what I'll be getting into. All right, so this slide shows the monitors that we have throughout Eastern Pima County. We do air quality monitoring in just the metropolitan area. And these are the locations, and you can access this on our website, which is pima.gov/DEQ. So we have 16 air quality monitoring sites located throughout Eastern Pima County. And these are regulating emissions of our 6 criteria pollutants. So the criteria pollutants are regulated through the Clean Air Act, and they're known as the NAAQS, the National Ambient Air Quality Standards. And the 6 criteria pollutants that are regulated and that we're monitoring for are the 2 main ones that we are concerned about in Pima County are ground level ozone and particulate matter. There's 2 sizes of particulate matter, coarse and fine, PM10 and PM2.5. I'll explain those in a little more detail with the coming slides. And then carbon monoxide, oxides of nitrogen, sulfur dioxide, and lead. We actually don't have any lead monitors. Lead in the air is not an issue here in Pima County, so we are not required to monitor for lead. So we do have monitors for all these others. And when you go on our website, it actually shows the different pollutants that are being monitored at these locations. So some of the air quality, the criteria pollutants are really not an issue at all. And these are the ones that you can see the black line represents the standard. And the standards are often kind of complex. They are different average times. Some you can see with the NO2 on the upper right-hand corner there, that's an annual average standard. The carbon monoxide standard, this particular one is for an 8-hour time frame. So they're all different, but they're based on what EPA has determined to be considered protective of public health. So it's not really all that important to know the nuances of all those standards, but you can see here that on the x-axis at the bottom, we start at 1990, and then we go up to 20 and 21. And that's the most current validated data that we have. And you can see for carbon monoxide that it was a much bigger issue back in the early 90s. And before that, in the 70s and 80s, it was actually above the standard. We were in non-attainment for carbon monoxide. And the reason that has changed with respect to carbon monoxide is because when the Clean Air Act required that catalytic converters be put on all new cars, the catalytic converters basically help to strip out the carbon monoxide, or a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it from what's coming out of the tailpipe. And those catalytic converters basically had the impact of lowering the amount of carbon monoxide that we have in the air. So that's another just one example of many that the Clean Air Act has helped to solve that problem. And we are no longer, we had clean data for 20 years. We had a maintenance time frame when we had to report to EPA, and now we are considered in attainment for carbon monoxide. By the way, these bars represent different monitoring sites. So Children's Park and 22nd Alvernon are just the different monitoring sites that these are showing. And you can see with carbon or nitrogen dioxide, that actually hasn't been a problem in and of itself ever in this region. So you can see that that's well below the standard up here, as well as sulfur dioxide, well below the standard. So those are 3 of the criteria pollutants that Here in Tucson, we really don't have to be too concerned about those. So now we'll go on to the ones that we are more concerned with, which is ozone and particulate matter. So in 2021, this represents the AQI index. So basically the AQI is the air quality index, and that's taking these kind of complex levels that EPA has determined to be safe for human health, and put it into an easy to understand format. So when you look at our website and you see where the levels are at, it's going to be based on the air quality index, which is a much easier way to understand those levels. Green is good, yellow is moderate, red is unhealthy, and it kind of goes up from there. So you can see for the fine particulate matter, the particulate matter is 2.5 microns or smaller. It's really, really fine. We would typically consider that coming from smoke. Or any sort of burning fuel can create fine particulate matter. And you can see that for 2021, 83% of the days were good days, and 17% of the days were moderate days. We have none of the days that were considered in the unhealthy range. For the coarse particulate matter, it's even better. 95% of those days were good, 5% were moderate, and we did have, it was probably maybe 1 or 2 that was considered unhealthy, and that can happen when we have some dust storms. So if we have a big haboob come in, then we can kind of trip those limits, and it's usually very short-lived. And then with ozone, ground level ozone, you can see that 67% of the days are good, 32 are moderate, and 1% are unhealthy. And so this is, for a city of our size, I would say our air quality is really very good. If you were to compare this to, let's say, what's going on in Phoenix, it's dramatically different. Phoenix has much worse air quality than Tucson. Obviously, it has many more people as well, many more cars. It's also more geographically kind of, it's located in an unfortunate place because it's in a bowl. So, we're in pretty good shape for a population of about 1 million people. To have this quality of air is pretty good. So we should consider ourselves quite lucky. So let's talk a little bit more about ozone, because ozone is our biggest concern. Now, a lot of times we say ozone, and many people understandably think of the ozone layer up in the upper atmosphere. It is the same thing. It's 3 oxygen basically attached to each other, O3. And when it's up in the atmosphere, it's protecting us from UV radiation. It's a good thing. That's why we got the green thumbs up. But when it's down at the ground level and we breathe it in, it's not good for us to be breathing in. It does not come directly out of a tailpipe. It is a pollutant that's formed in the atmosphere through a complex chemical reaction. So the nitrogen oxides that come out from fuel burning from power plants and motor vehicles and anything that's putting out emissions those are the nitrogen oxides. And that can combine with volatile organic compounds. So volatile organic compounds are basically, those chemicals that you can smell. So gasoline, paints, solvents, all of those things are volatile organic compounds. When NOx and VOCs blend in the presence of sunlight at the ground level, it forms ozone. So ozone is really only an issue in the summertime because our days are longer and the sun is more intense. It's not an issue at all in the wintertime. So it's really about April through September, we see higher ozone levels. And I'm going to just show you kind of where we're at with ozone and how it's changed over time. So we are considered in attainment, meaning we are in compliance with the standards that are set by EPA. But you can see with this one, it's a little different than the other ones I showed. The standards have changed over time. So this purple line from 1997, that's the standard, it was at 0.08. And then EPA changed it in 2008 to be 0.075. And that's because they basically learned through research and studies that a lower level was going to be more protective of public health. And then they did that again in 2015, and now the standard is at 0.07. Now we're much closer to violating the standard. You can see that the trend is in the downward level, but it's not as dramatic. It's much more up and down. And we still are learning a lot about ozone and how it forms. And we do find that it's not very predictable. There's a lot of factors that are involved because it's that chemical reaction. There's weather issues, there's geography issues, and then, there's kind of these unknowns, and we don't have it completely figured out. And but you can see that we are still mostly below the line, but we have gone over this line several times in 2017 and 18 and 20. But because this standard is a complicated one, it's the fourth highest 8-hour average concentration over a 3-year average. So if we go over that line 3 years in a row, then we're looking at non-attainment. We're looking at many more restrictions. We're looking at transportation dollars being impacted if we don't meet those standards and things along those lines. So we are very close every summer to kind of going over that standard, but it has to be over a 3-year time frame. And so we've just gotten very, very lucky. EPA is in the process of actually reevaluating the standard again. It may go down. It could go down to 0.065, something like that. If that happens, then we will definitely be in non-attainment. But all of these things take a long time with EPA. So that is yet to be seen. So that's where we're at with ozone. And let's look at a graph here of this is just one, this is over the course of a week, actually. So you can see that it goes up in the middle of the day and then it goes down at night, up and down and up and down. And that's because of that reaction I was talking about. So when the sun sets, the ozone reduces. The ozone needs to have the sun in order to be basically in the atmosphere. When the sun goes down, the ozone goes down too. So that's kind of interesting that these are showing the lines at all the different monitoring sites that we have for ozone in our region.
Natalie, Dan had a question. I'm wondering about having a monitoring site near the TEP Sunt generating station. He says that seems like the most likely location for particulate and nitrogen dioxide pollution.
We do have one, I think, I'm going to go off memory here. I think maybe the Rose Elementary one might be the one that's closest. And that is true for the TEP is putting out a good amount of nitrogen oxides, but it's not enough to show up really at all as any impact on the monitors that we have. And particulate matter, yes, they also do emit particulate matter, but that too is also not, we regulate them. They have an air quality permit with us. So they actually have really stringent regulations on what they can have coming out of their smokestacks. And that's also based on the standards that the Clean Air Act has set out. And so our department is inspecting them every year and making sure that they're in compliance, and they are in compliance. They almost always are, unless they have some sort of operational issue. They would report that to us right away, and we don't have any issues with them. So that is true. The closer the monitors are to these sources, the more you might find that, but they're just not close enough to even be picking up any sort of issue. And we really shouldn't be seeing an issue based on what we know is coming out of their stacks from our permitting. So that's a good question. Okay, so let's talk about particulate matter or dust. We're all familiar with this. So I was talking about the two different sizes. PM10 is what we would be considered like dust. And you can see here, this is relative to the size of a human hair, which is approximately 50 to 70 microns in diameter. And then we're looking at particulate matter that is only 10 microns in diameter or less. So that's the blue one here. And then the red one is the small little ones, the 2.5. They're even smaller. So PM10 is going to be coming from, wind-blown sources. I have some slides that kind of show those sources. And then the 2.5 is coming from more of the burning of fuels. And then you can see how it compares to beach sand, which is quite a bit larger. So the smaller these are, the deeper they can get into the lungs and the worse they are for us. So it is safe to say that PM 2.5 is more harmful to us than PM10, but they're both not good for us to be breathing, which is why they're regulated by the Clean Air Act. So let's look at what we've got going on here with PM 2.5. So these are photos of different sources of PM 2.5. So yep, the power plant, they're burning natural gas that will put out fine particulate matter. Fireworks, we do see big spikes with 4th of July and New Year's. I think I have a graph with that coming up. Diesel is definitely, diesel fuel is a source. Forest fires, fireplaces, and then you will get some from earth moving activities, but just not nearly as much. You can also get it from brake and tire wear from motor vehicles. So you can see here with this is the 3-year average of the 24-hour standard. We are still well below that 35 micrograms per cubic meter level. So we are in pretty good shape with PM 2.5 in our region. And I will say that places like Nogales are not. And that's because there's more burning there. We see some pretty significant issues in Nogales in the wintertime because of the fires that people burn agricultural or garbage or just for heat. And so they have quite a bit more issues with PM 2.5 down in Nogales than we do here. Let's look at this. This is interesting. This is a graph that shows the fireworks celebrations on New Year's and the 4th of July. So you can see just in that short period of time, this is being picked up at our monitors. And this is, you know, who knows where these fireworks are being set off, right? They're all over the place, but you can see a big spike in that time frame. So that's kind of an interesting source of PM 2.5. You can see quite a dramatic change there on those days. And then when we get into PM 10, the sources of that are going to be from agriculture, mines, dirt roads, construction. All of those earth moving activities kick up dust. And so we do regulate all of those activities through the permits that we issue. We issue those except for agriculture. Agriculture is exempt from these regulations, and they are exempt for almost all regulations. But we do regulate the mines. We regulate the crushing and screening operations and the construction activities. All of those things are regulated by our office through our permits that we issue. You can see we had a pretty big spike in 2008-9 timeframe. I think that was actually 2009. And then back in 2021, we actually had that as well. It was less though. So I was actually a dust inspector back in 1998-99, and it was a significant problem back then. So we've done a long way into improving the dust emissions that we have in our air. But again, we're not in non-attainment for this because it's a 3-year average. So the same thing with, or over 3 years, it has to be a problem 3 years in a row in order to put us in that status. We do have one non-attainment area in Pima County, and that's called the Rito PM10 non-attainment area. And that refers to the area of Rito, which is just at the Pima-Pinal County line, right where the Portland cement plant is when you drive past I-10. And that is, it's just a much, there's a monitor there. You can actually see every day the differences in the dust levels out in that area versus in the city. And you can often see they frequently still do have exceedances at their monitor. Why? Because they have the cement plant, they have the agricultural activities, they have the freeway, they have the construction with all the homes being built. So it's kind of a really consolidated area of earth moving activities that are contributing to that. So the State Department of Environmental Quality is actually working on putting together a plan to try to get them back into attainment. Again, these processes are very, very slow, but that is happening. And just a couple of weeks ago, there was a public meeting. You may have heard about that. And that was referring to that Rito non-attainment area.
There was a question also from Ronald Spark about agriculture. Why is agriculture given a free pass?
I ask myself that question all the time. I wish I had the answer. I think if you were to ask folks who make those decisions, they would say because they're feeding us. The reality is that it's it's an industry that has dominated our state for a long time. You know, our state is founded, or at least the recent history is agriculture. So we have very powerful lobbyists that basically say they're feeding us, so they need to be exempt. So I actually don't know of any regulations that they have They might have some, but I don't know of any of them. I know the state has some best management practices on the books that they're supposed to be adhering to, but as far as I know, they don't really enforce it at all. And I've never heard of any fines or anything like that. Even when you hear about some of the agriculture that contributes to some of the accidents on I-10, they still seem to get away with it. So not something that I support, but I'm also not the decision maker. So that's my best guess.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so let's get to the meat of this. Why do these standards exist? These standards exist because they're health-based standards. We're talking about public health here. And so what are the effects of air pollution on the human body? Well, we've got irritation in the eyes, nose, and throat. That's going to be really significant with ozone. Airway inflammation, coughing, wheezing, lung tissue damage, reduced lung function. If you're an asthmatic, you definitely can feel it on those days when we have worse air quality. Ozone is a big contributor to asthma issues, chest pain, and then, the fine particulate matter, not only does it get into your lungs, but because it's so small, it can get deep inside your lungs, and then it can actually get into your bloodstream. So it causes not only lung problems, but cardiac problems. So PM 2.5 is really, the more research that's done, the more they're realizing that that's pretty terrible pollutant. And so it does cause significant health issues. You can kind of see here the differences in a normal airway versus asthmatic airway versus an asthmatic airway when it is during an asthma attack. And those get constricted and tightened, and that's why it's difficult for the air to go through. So these are significant issues. And if you look at the statistics, and you compare, let's say places in Asia with really terrible air quality with places that have clean air, you will find that those populations don't live as long, and they have many more health issues, more hospitalizations. So air pollution has a significant impact, not only on us as humans and the environment, it has an impact on our disability, it has an impact on our economy, and it has ripple effects. So it's definitely something that's important to focus on, and I'm glad I live in a place that it is focused on, because there are many places in the world with no Clean Air Act, and it's very difficult to see in those places. So we are pretty lucky to be in a place that has these type of regulations that are protective of our health. So if you look at who's most affected, we all are affected, but there are people who are more affected than others, and that's going to be children. Children breathe more air. They often breathe faster, and so children are definitely more impacted, older adults, and then obviously those with pre-existing lung and heart diseases. And you think about those who exercise outside and those who work outside are definitely going to be more exposed. And so when I get to the end of my presentation, that's when I'll get to where you can actually determine whether or not it's a good idea to actually exercise outside by looking at the current air quality. And I'll tell you how to do that. So I work at the Department of Environmental Quality, and I administer the Clean Air Program. And the goal of the Clean Air Program is to try to get people to drive less. That is the main goal. Why? Because about 50% of our air pollution, and you could say our climate pollution is in the 30 to 50% range as well, is coming from motor vehicles. That's not just cars and trucks on the road, but it's the trains, it's trucks, it's construction equipment, it's the heavy duty light, all of those mobile sources of air pollution, whether they're on roads or off road. That's going to contribute more than any other source to our air pollution. So that's why we encourage driving less, it's difficult to encourage people to do that. What can we do to reduce our own air pollution emissions? There are many things you can do. Some of these are going to be intuitive, like riding a bike instead of a car. Yes, that's driving less. But there are other things. I mean, you can telecommute if you work. That's saving your trip. You can combine errands. We've got free transit right now. We should be utilizing that as much as we can. Carpooling. And then maintaining your vehicles. If you do drive a car, if you keep those tires properly inflated, just as if you were on a bike, if you were to ride a bike with that has tires that aren't properly inflated, you know how hard it is to work to actually move that bike. It's no different in a car. if you just don't know it. So you're using a lot more gas, you're using more energy, and you're putting out more air pollution when your tires aren't properly inflated. So that's something you should be doing, especially in the winter time. Be checking those tires at least once a month, because in the winter, because of the temperature fluctuations, it usually has more of an impact. But it's a good habit to get into monthly to check that, make sure that your tire pressure is appropriate. You can actually see the appropriate tire pressure inside your door of your car. It actually has a chart there, and it tells you the PSI that's recommended for your tires. Idling is something, we have an anti-idling program. We do not have any regulations that prohibit idling, but if you walk around anywhere, you will see a lot of idling. And I believe idling is one of the low-hanging fruit that we could really be attacking. And I wish more people were actually participating in our programs that we have for it. So we have an idle reduction program for schools as well as businesses. So when schools sign up to be a part of that, we offer signage, 2 signs that can be posted at the school saying that it's an idle-free zone. And we offer educational materials and also materials where students can get involved in actually promoting the not idling at the school. It's particularly bad at schools because the kids that are waiting to be picked up are right next to the people who are idling. So the closer you are to the car, the more you're actually breathing in. And it's those young children with the increased lung, or the where they're breathing more air, and they're breathing it in as their parents are waiting to pick them up. So if you work at schools or have children at schools, I would encourage you to lead them to our website and start participating in that idle-free or school program. It doesn't cost anything. And I do believe that just things like signage can make a big difference, because a lot of people who are idling are just not even thinking about it. They're not thinking that they're polluting. They're not thinking, they're just doing it because that's just what they do. So I think things like signs can be a really simple way of just kind of reminding people to turn off their car. Most of the time during the school year, you don't need climate control, and that there are times at the beginning and the end when, yeah, that AC's got to stay on. Then we would just encourage the parents to really try to arrive more promptly, so they're not sitting there for a long period of time. And then the same thing we offer for businesses. We will give 2 metal signs. They're different signs than this that you see here, but you can basically, if you're a business owner, you can say, I want to be an idle-free business, and you put up the signs in your parking lot, basically implement a policy. And we've got educational materials that we'll provide to you. And again, those signs can then be posted at the business. So again, this is a pretty easy way to really reduce emissions and also educate people about that particular topic.
Natalie, I think you've touched a chord here, because we've all unfortunately been stuck next to some vehicle that was idling, and we couldn't really get away from it. Billy said, I'll point out that the Red Cross has their mobile blood donation buses, and they're idling all day because apparently their engine, the vehicle engine, is the generator or the provider of energy and the AC for everything they're doing. Is there anything that can be done about vehicles like that?
So those generators, you'll hear them. It's different than the car. Usually they're a separate generator, as I understand it. So like the food trucks and stuff, they also need those types of generators, and they do need power when they are operating. They need to air condition it typically and have power for their equipment and stuff. So I don't know if there's any way around it, but I would say that those generators are not putting out the same amount of pollution as a tailpipe with a car. Like if the truck itself was idling and it was coming out of the tailpipe, it's not going to be the same amount of emissions. And I don't know, unless they were to get a solar powered generator or something like that, I don't know if there's any way around it. But that's a good question.
Okay.
So a few other things that these are maybe less obvious is don't top off your tank. When you're filling up your car with gas, stop at the click. And that's because the more you fill it up, the more it's going to actually evaporate out of that tank. And that's going to put out those VOCs that contribute to ozone formation. Again, in the summer, you want to try to also fuel up after 6 p.m. Why? Because it relates to what I was talking about with the ozone. If you can actually put out those emissions, so again, every time you fill up your car, you're smelling a little bit of gas, right? So those are volatile organic compounds that are contributing to ozone formation. If you actually fill up and then you're emitting those volatile organic compounds later in the day, it doesn't have a chance to form into ozone. So if you're actually filling up in the morning, you're contributing more to the ozone problem than if you're filling up in the afternoon. This is not a common knowledge thing. So that's another thing you can do. And again, this is particularly important in the summer months when it's warmer and the lit days are longer. And of course, picking a more fuel efficient vehicle is always a better way to go as well, as far as reducing your emissions. So when you look at what's going on at home, then we're talking more about energy usage. Now, this, many people do have solar panels on their home, and that might be 100% of their electricity. And then you could, I guess, say you're not putting out any emissions with the electricity that you're generating with your panels. But most of us do not have solar panels on our home that completely power everything that we have, which means that some of our power is coming from TEP, and TEP is burning natural gas. So they are generating power through the burning of natural gas. So the more electricity we use, the more air pollution is generated. So the things we can do at home is reduce our energy consumption. And that's through all of these types of things here: turning off the lights, making sure that your appliances are only running when they're full, your washer or dishwasher, using those energy efficient light bulbs, which TEP gives out for free, trying to switch your appliances to energy efficient appliances, using power cords and then turning it off. Because if you've heard about zombie power, so unplugging things that aren't in use because there's still power running through there. And so if you can unplug things that aren't in use, that saves energy. I'm a big fan of line drying clothes. The dryer is one of the biggest sources of electricity usage in a home. So line drying your clothes, oftentimes it's faster, I can tell you from my own experience, than a dryer. And then, reducing your water consumption is related to energy consumption too, because our water is being pumped uphill from the CAP. So it takes a lot of energy to pump that water here. So when you save water, you're saving energy. And this is just the guy who's wrapped his water heater. So these are just some simple things you can do at home to reduce your, they're going to lower your cost of electricity or natural gas, and they're also going to save on your own personal emissions. Okay. So now we're going to get into the air quality index a little bit more. And this is where I'm going to be kind of telling you about what you can do to really figure out, what's going on out there today. Should I exercise? When should I exercise? Those types of things. So this is a chart that shows the air quality index. Like I said, it's basically taking those standards, putting them into an easy to understand format that shows you how good it is based on this kind of rainbow scale. So you can access this at any point in time. This photo on the side here is a picture. It's actually a screenshot of my phone. So I recommend, if you've got a smartphone, to download the Air Now app on your phone so that you can always check it wherever you are. You download that Air Now app. This is an app that has been put together by the EPA. You can actually see the air quality anywhere throughout the United States that has monitors. So you can see here that it'll tell you usually the highest level. If you click down on the bottom and you click to map, you can see what the levels are at the different monitors. And you can click even finer on what they're actually monitoring for. During the summertime, we will often have smoke issues. And that could be because we have a nearby fire. It could be because there's fires in Mexico that are, the smoke is coming up here. You don't know. So if you can go to the app and you click on smoke, it'll show you the smoke plumes. And sometimes you'll see that maybe that PM 2.5 level is higher than it usually is. Oftentimes that's going to be because of fires that are nearby or not nearby. I mean, I think we all know that we can get smoke that travels very long distances. So it's oftentimes really hard to tell where it's coming from. I find that to be very useful to be able to see where the smoke's coming from. And then, so that you can also just look at it on your computer. So you can go to airnow.gov on your computer, and basically you're putting in a zip code or a city, and then it's going to give you the information for that. So you can look at any city and do comparisons. Maybe you want to see where your family lives and what that's like. I know my parents live in Oregon, and over the summer they had some serious smoke issues there because of all the fires that were up there. It was nice to be able to see what was going on up there. And then that way, when you decide that you want to go outside and exercise, when you're breathing heavier, that's when you're definitely more susceptible. You can look at that and go, okay, is it a good idea for me to go outside and exercise right now? And you can just do it right on your phone. So I feel like this is really powerful, and it's important for us to stay aware for our own decision-making purposes. Okay. So what can you do on those high pollution days? Oops. You want to stay informed in the way that I just told you. And then if you see higher levels, unfortunately, or fortunately for us, when we have high levels of ozone, it's almost always like on the really hot days at the hot time. So most of the time when we have our highest ozone levels, people aren't going to want to actually go outside and exercise. So that's kind of nice. So in the summertime, if you're an outdoor exerciser, you're going to be better off exercising in the morning than the afternoon, because the ozone levels are higher in the afternoon. So even before the sun comes up, that's going to be your best time, or really early in the morning. If you see those levels are higher, then you definitely want to make a change and maybe do some exercise indoors, or change it until for another time. You want to avoid exercising along congested streets. Like I said, with the idling, the closer you are to the source of the pollution, by far, the more you are exposed. So it dissipates rapidly, whether it be a point source like a power plant or a car. It definitely dissipates quickly. So when you are really close, like on a sidewalk of a busy street and you're running, you are going to be breathing in more air pollution. So if you're a jogger or a biker, you want to try to avoid being along those streets and be in areas with less cars. And then, like I said, choose the time of day, the best time of day to actually exercise outside. See what I got here. So other resources, this is a forecast that is done every 5 days a week by the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. They have meteorologists that work to predict what the air pollution is going to be. And so when you sign up for these forecasts, they will send them to you Monday through Friday. I really like them for multiple reasons. One, it breaks down for ozone, PM10 and PM2.5. And this is the one for showing for Tucson. And you can actually get forecasts for lots of different locations throughout the state. It'll give you a pretty good description of the weather forecast as well at the bottom, and how it relates to the air pollution. And it'll show you the time of day when they expect it to be highest. So you'll see here for this particular one, they were predicting moderate levels of, like I said, would be in the middle of the day there. And so you can kind of make your decisions based on that. They are pretty accurate too. So this is another really great resource that comes right to your inbox. And you would sign up at azdeq.gov and then search for air quality forecasts. You can actually also get that link through our website, pima.gov/DEQ. And then you can sign up to get our notices, which are basically media releases or public releases for when we have, these used to be called advisories, and ADEQ still calls them air quality advisories. We changed actually in December to call ours air quality action days, because we're trying to differentiate between what ADEQ does. Both of them are basically just giving you a heads up that on those days we are predicting or currently in a problem time. So if we have a smoke day, a dust day, or an ozone day, we'll send out those media releases. It'll come right to your inbox, and you can see that on that particular day we're going to have an issue. Sometimes in the summer we might have back-to-back days, so you would get multiple ozone action day notices. So I would recommend that if you want to be more informed about air pollution, to really sign up for all of these things, and it's going to give you the quickest information about what's going on in the future with the forecast, and then on those bad air quality days. A couple of weeks ago, we issued a dust action day. If you would have gotten that if you're already getting those notices. And a lot of people could see that it was hazy outside, but they didn't really know what was going on. And so it's kind of nice to just see like, oh, it was really, really windy overnight. And actually some dust came in from California. Well, you try to put in that information in there and you can actually know what's going on. We might have days when we're socked in with smoke and we don't even know about any fires that are nearby. We'll try to tell you where that smoke is coming from, so you know.
Natalie,
Mm-hmm.
would you recommend that schools subscribe to this, because they've got scores, if not hundreds of children outdoors for
Mhm.
PE, things like that. And
Yes,
they don't always know about dust and ozone and
that's true.
smoke.
I do get calls sometimes from schools that already are signed up. So I would actually absolutely recommend that you sign up for those emails, those action day emails on our website. You do the forecast, but the emails are going to be more accurate. The forecast is kind of a best guess of what's going to happen in the future. And the ones that come directly from us, these action days are, it's happening. Don't, and then and if they were to get that notification, then they should make the call to maybe not have the kids do PE or recess outside. So that's a really good suggestion.
There's also been a lot of conversation in the chat box about two-stroke engines, and examples are little motors you can put on bicycles and go buzzing around, and also leaf blowers, which we're all aware of. Do you have any comments on those as contributors, their relative worth in our urban environment? And
yeah, that's actually my next slide, and we have a program for that. So I'll get into that right now.
Super.
Oops. Okay. So their relative contribution, if you look at all of the emissions in the region, is small. Okay, so when you compare it to cars or what's coming from power plants or factories, it's a small piece of the emissions pie. However, each individual two-stroke engine, whether it be on a bike, hopefully most of those are electric now, but you do smell them when they come by. Boy, it's hard to miss. Or leaf blowers or lawnmowers. We always smell them. Why? Because they don't have the catalytic converters on them. And so they are putting out dramatically more air pollution than even a large truck. They did a study, and they showed that 1 hour use of a two-stroke leaf blower was the same amount of emissions as driving from Texas to Alaska. So it's a lot of emissions. And you can imagine, again, like I said, the closer you are to it, that user is being impacted the most. And they are a big enough contributor to our ozone, particularly our ozone problem, that the state is basically giving us money to implement this cut down pollution program. So what can you do? Now, this does not pertain to the engines on bikes, but any gas powered lawn and garden equipment, whether that be chainsaws, tillers, leaf blowers, lawn mowers, string trimmers, all of those, if they're gas powered, you can actually turn them in. You would go to the pima.gov/cut pollution. It's a 3-step process. You basically report the equipment that you have. It's going to ask you some questions about the approximate year it was manufactured and how often you use it. So you have to give some estimates on that. You fill out the application, and then we will send you a drop-off form that you then take with you to either Los Reales or any of our Pima County transfer stations. And you drop off your gas-powered equipment. They stamp your drop-off form that basically says we've received your equipment. They then destroy the equipment, recycle it, and then you get a voucher for either manual or electric or plug-in piece of equipment. So for every lawnmower, you can get a $150 voucher, and we have an agreement with Home Depot. So you would get a $150 voucher to Home Depot, and you can get one of their mini battery-powered lawnmowers or any other lawn and garden equipment that you might want, whether it be manual or electric or plug-in. For the smaller things, so it's $150 for lawnmower. All the other pieces of equipment that I mentioned, you can get $50 for those. So this is something that we are, like I said, we're receiving money from the state because they realize that if the more of these that they can get off the street, the better off we are going to be. It is particularly with ozone, but it also contributes to particulate matter. So I would highly encourage you, if you've got any of those old pieces of equipment, that you turn them in and take advantage of this. And this will definitely be going on at least for another year, but probably longer. But our agreement with ADEQ is through this summer of next year for this. So this is a great way to get some money for that old equipment that you might not want to use anymore. Plus the other equipment is just quieter It is easier to start. I mean, all those two-stroke engines, you got to pull the chain, and you got to, the maintenance on them is atrocious. So we want to get those off the streets. Leaf blowers in general, I would say, I would like to get them all off the street, but electric or a battery powered one is going to be better than a gas powered one. So it's nice that we have something to offer when it comes to that particular topic. Any questions about that?
Well, we see a question from Trace and Paula.
Natalie, are there some little factoids or things to point out to people? We do a monthly newsletter, and there might be some stuff that we could stick in periodically to encourage people to do things like this cut down pollution program.
Yeah, we can provide you any way you want to help us promote these things. We've got handouts. I mean, all the stuff's on our website. So if you're doing things electronically, then you can just link to those pages and inform people. But you can come to me if you need any resources whatsoever. I would love it if you could help us promote this particular program and anything else that I talked about today. That's what I'm here for, is to try to get people to understand what we have to offer to help protect people's health. So please reach out to me and let me know what you need, and I will provide it to you.
That's really exciting, Natalie. What other organizations come to mind who might just need to know about this? Who could help you with this publicity? Maybe neighborhood associations?
Yeah, neighborhood associations would be great. Absolutely. We also have a commercial program for the cut down pollution. They get $200. So trying to convince commercial users to, and it's unlimited. So for a resident, you can only get one $150 voucher. For commercial, you can get $200 vouchers, and it's unlimited. So helping us promote it with maybe companies that you hire to do landscaping work, to try to encourage them to go electric or battery. Yeah, it's really anybody. But I think we definitely tried to do some targeted outreach to the neighborhood associations and also to commercial users. But anything you all can do in your communities would be really, really great.
Super. Now, Natalie, Ben Need commented that even when the leaf blowers are powered by electricity, they have negative effects. And
Yeah.
I know that your predecessor, Beth Gorman, some years ago put out a little piece on leaf blowers. Where's your department now on?
Well, we have
encouraging-
regulations. We do have regulations on the books. Dust can't be crossing a property boundary line. It does need to be controlled, just like any other dust source. So we get people who file complaints with our department, and when they do, oftentimes it's hard for us to actually do anything, because by the time we get out there, it's over. So we can't really issue violations or anything like that if we don't see it. But you can file complaints on our website is the quickest way. And if you can snap a photo and give us a photo of it, that's even better, maybe a video to show us. And then we will reach out to the landscaping company and let them know that they were causing a problem and do some education. We also have some brochures about leaf blowers. So leaf blowers, whether, definitely they're coming, if they're gas powered, it's coming out of the exhaust, but obviously it's blowing up the dust too, whether or not it's electric. So is it creating a dust problem? I am definitely not a fan of leaf blowers, but they're, I think we all know how frequently they're used here just to clean up rocks, right? So but just know that you can file a complaint with our department if that's something that's an issue, and we will send an inspector out and do what we can to mediate it. It usually ends up being more education than anything, but that's better than nothing. So we do have regulations on the book for that, and they can be kicking up dust and having it cross property boundary lines. So this is I know we're running a little short on time. This is, I think, my last slide. We've got the This is Cleaner Challenge coming up, or right now. Last week was Air Quality Awareness Week, and we launched this last week. And you can take basically test your air quality knowledge by taking a quiz. And you can go to pima.gov/healthy air to take that quiz. And people who take that quiz will be eligible for prize drawings. And we've got some really cool prizes. Most things related to trying to drive less, But I would encourage you to do that, see where you're at, especially after this slideshow, where your knowledge is with the with air quality, and that will be up for the entire month of May. So you'll have a chance to win those prizes for this month. And then that's all I've got. This is my contact information. You're welcome to call or email me anytime if you need resources, if you have questions, if you need advice on where to go on our website to access information, whatever you need. I am here to help. So let me know if you have any other questions.
Thank you, Natalie. Before we go back to Trace and Paula, Ronald Spark wanted to know about recreational fireplaces, and please feel free, others, to show your hand up, and that way we can have your voice in the room as well. But what about recreational fireplaces? What is their status here in Pima County?
Are we just talking about fireplaces in the home? Yeah.
Oh, well, not sure.
Did you want to elaborate on that? Whoever asked it, I'm sorry.
Ronald Spark?
Yeah,
Okay.
we have a number of homes in our area. In the winter, they have recreational fireplaces almost every night, and it's really very heavy air pollution locally.
Yeah, it definitely is a big generator of particularly that PM 2.5. So the worst stuff to breathe. We don't have any regulations here on that. In Phoenix, they do. They have no burn days because they have worse air pollution, but we do not. So we do not have any regulations on it. We can't stop people from burning, but what we can do is provide education to them. There are things that people can do to actually put out less pollution from their fireplaces, like burning hardwood instead of softwood, hardwood, things like mesquite. There's also fireplaces that are EPA certified fireplaces, which will basically increase the temperature that the wood is burning, and it'll burn cleaner. So we can educate folks on how to basically try to transition to an EPA approved fireplace. But beyond that, as far as like if you were to file a complaint, there's not much we can do on that because people are allowed to burn in their fireplaces here. And it is a problem. Some areas are worse than others. We get a lot of complaints from Green Valley, actually, about that in the winter time. So I wish there was something more we could do, but really, if you needed more education, we do have some information on our website. And reach out to me and we can try to educate them, but that's about all we can do.
But it sounds like you've got an educational infrastructure, as it were, where you can give good things to people and make a friendly contact.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we do that with a number of things. Yeah.
Super. Is it just you, or do you have interns, or how's that done?
I have 2 staff that help me also. So there's 3 of us here in this department who do the education and outreach programs.
All right. Now, Jan's got an announcement, but let's first trace Paula. One of you has a question.
Yeah, actually, I've got 2 questions. When you were talking earlier about pollution, air pollution from cars, I was wondering if you're expecting to see any positive impact from increased driving of electric vehicles, if that is expected to make a difference.
Yes, absolutely. Electric vehicles put out, obviously the vehicles themselves are not polluting at all. So it's significantly better. The EPA is actually proposing new standards right now for motor vehicles to be basically emitting a lot less by the year 2035. And so we should see a significant decrease in emissions coming from motor vehicles or from that transportation sector as the years go by and more electric cars are on the road. So it's going to help a lot with climate change, and it's also going to help a lot with air pollution simultaneously. So yeah, I do think that we will see a big benefit from electric car usage. And oftentimes people say, well, don't you have to get the electricity and The reality is, if you compare what a car with a tailpipe is putting out and you compare it with the amount of emissions that are coming from a power plant that's needed to charge the car, it's dramatically different. That power plant has air pollution control devices on it. The cars do too, but when you look at it, it's not even close. So that will definitely, we should see a big benefit from that over these next, I would say the next decade, that we should definitely see our air pollution get better because of that.
Well, and if you charge your EV with the electricity from your solar panels on your roof,
Yeah,
all the better.
that's what I do. That's what I do. Yes.
So my other question actually was, you mentioned the Portland cement and the impact that seems to have, but I was wondering if there are any other specific areas of town or of the county where you see some dramatic increases or spikes in pollution, and how that might be affecting the neighborhoods around them, if there are some.
That's a good question. We don't see anything on our existing monitors that's too for ozone. Our worst area is actually in Saguaro National Park East. And that has to do with the way the wind blows. You might think it's where the cars, like there's not as many cars out there. Well, it has to do with the wind is shifting those precursors over to the mountains and next to the Rincon Mountains, and it's cooking over there, and so it gets higher there. We did receive a grant. I'm proud to say it's been a while that we've been notified, but we haven't received the money yet. I'm hoping EPA will pull through here soon, and it's basically going to fund 30 sensors. So these aren't the big monitors that we have. The monitors are very expensive. There's very rigorous requirements for siting them, but there are air quality sensors that are much smaller. Anybody can buy them and put them anywhere that they want. So we're going to purchase 30 of those, and we're going to place them at schools throughout Eastern Pima County. And we will have a much finer scale with that data. We're going to make the data publicly available. And then we're going to do some analysis with students at the school to look at environmental justice issues. When we talk about environmental justice, kind of what you're talking about, those smaller scale areas that might have higher impact, very likely, we're kind of guessing that they would be in areas that would have more sources of air pollution. So down south, you've got Los Reales, you've got TEP, you've got the freeway, you've got the tank farms, and they're all located within a few square miles of each other. So we'll definitely be putting some sensors in that area, and we'll be able to see at a finer scale if there actually are more differences in the area. And that's why we basically applied for the grant, because we wanted to have an opportunity to be able to look at it a little finer. But based on our existing data that we have, the only monitor that really stands out that we have is the one in Rito. And that's actually not our monitor. That's a monitor that's being run by the state. So, but it's still on the map. You can still pull it up and you can see exactly those differences when you look at the monitoring sites. So hopefully in the next couple of years, we'll have that up and running, those sensors, and we'll be able to see, we'll have more data to see what the differences are throughout the city.
Natalie, Jana pointed out that Sierra Club has suggested some actions to clean the air, and they point us to our state legislature. And there's a particular bill that she mentions, SB 1278, which would limit cities and towns' ability to protect their residents via local building code provisions related to affordability, energy, and public health. So maybe that's just an announcement to everyone. If you'd like to opine on that, it's there in our chat box. But Natalie, can you comment on that?
I'm familiar with a couple of pieces of legislation. I can't say that I could speak to that one specifically. The legislature seems to be wanting to limit anything that has to do with tracking vehicle miles traveled and things like that. So there's a couple bills in there. We might be seeing something on the ballot. I don't think any of those are going to get beyond Katie Hobbs, but there is one that's referendum, and that might go to the ballot. Yeah, I mean, anybody who follows the state legislature knows that I'm not really all that concerned about public health. So, yeah, we need to stay on top of it. I mean, they are, they never cease to amuse me. I bite my tongue a little bit.
So I included a link that
Uh-huh.
has 4 petitions from the Sierra Club, and one is about the transportation, and they want to limit our ability to have any like plan for Tucson to make any plans for bike paths even.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's
just
one of
crazy stuff.
them. And then anyway, so you can just find them. The first link is broken, so it says sorry, try this link, and that should work.
Trace, can you stop sharing for me again? Because I'm again having that problem. I can't get to the chat. So I will definitely have a look at that.
And thank you, Jenna, for calling our attention to those issues. These are things that we can all do tonight or tomorrow when we get to work. And before calling on Karen, I'd just like to put in a quick pitch for the Ambassadors Program of Sustainable Tucson. One of the speakers will be Ryan Fagan of the Department of Transportation and Mobility for the city, and he'll be talking about alternative transportation. So we try to touch on that a bit. And Karen, you want to unmute Karen, and we'd love to hear you.
Oh, thank you. Just an idle curiosity. The iPhone app for weather has air quality on it. Does that pull from your monitoring station?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it does. So I always forget to say that because I'm so used to going to the Air Now app. But yeah, if you click on that too through your weather app, it'll get you. It looks a little different, but yeah, that data is coming from our monitors.
Okay, and of course, I'm assuming that many of the county and city departments work together. For example, planting more trees would help our air quality. So I don't know how we advocate. I mean, I know how to advocate for that, but it would be nice if the connections were made by different governmental entities that these things, are connected.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of collaboration, and I'm working on that. And we are going to be applying for a climate planning grant that EPA, if you're keeping up with the money coming from the Inflation Reduction Grant, our department will be getting $1 million for a climate planning grant. And we very much hope to be working with the city on that, since they obviously have their climate plan already. So yeah, I myself do very best I can to work as much as possible with them and try to cross-pollinate, work together on different initiatives. So
Thank you.
Very important.
Ben, have you been waiting to say anything?
Well, yeah, I never know how to do this hand raising thing electronically. Sorry. Yeah, I just I'm the one that was probably doing as much commenting as anyone tonight on the benefits of electric cars. Big thing with me. I would really like to see Pima County in its promotional literature. It's always, none of this stuff is bad. Take public transportation, drive less, and all that. But electric cars seems to be missing from the official byline. But you talked eloquently to it tonight, so I'd like to see that updated, perhaps.
Yeah, the problem with that is, and I'll just tell you from my own perspective, is that you're promoting something that is oftentimes not available to many people. And so when you promote that, I mean, it's just not, there are many people who can't access an electric car. They can't afford it. So it's not that I wouldn't want to, I've been driving an electric car since 2010. I was one of the first people in Tucson to actually purchase one of them when they started to become available. So still driving it. And it's not that we don't want to promote it, or it's just that it's, you get the backlash of, yeah, if I could afford it, or how about I can't get my hands on one now. I mean, I know that our county is working really hard to transition our fleet to electric vehicles, and we're waiting months and months and months to get them. So it's, you can say it, but can you get one? Can you pay for one? It's just, it's just easier to actually promote alternative modes. And also, I mean, you're still contributing to congestion. There are side benefits to getting people to exercise to get around. There are side benefits to carpooling socially. So I think there are probably more benefits to using the other modes, I'll just say. But I am a big fan of electric cars as one of the solutions. It's just when you're an educator and a person promoting these things, then, you know, it's not uncommon to hear, well, I can't afford an electric car, or I don't have a charger, or, you know, all those things. So or
Price parity now is
right
so close. I don't know. I just think that it feels like the promotional, you know, do this message that I get from Pima County is in about 15 years. It's a lot better, I think, than you characterize it. But that's just me.
Yeah, and it's not that way. It's just that we're really, especially with the Clean Air program, our mandate is to try to get people to drive less. That is the mandate. So that's why we promote it the way we do. But I do agree that it is one of the solutions. It's just not a solution that's available to everybody at this time. And I certainly don't poo-poo it. Like I said, I'm a big fan of my electric car. I love it. I've saved lots of money in gas. I've got solar. It's a solar powered car. But it's not the same as saying get on a free bus. It's just not. It, you know, it costs money, and you need to have availability, and you need to have a way to charge it. So there's some challenges there as well.
There's an interesting letter to the editor, I think it might have been today, where one writer said that the average EV car cost is less than the average cost for EVs now is actually less than the average cost for gas-powered motor vehicles. Now, probably with that, yeah, it might be worth looking up. I'll see if I can find it and send it to you. But the one hitch on that is that the range of prices for EVs may still be higher than a lot of people's income range. So the gas-powered vehicles may have some way down here, a lower cost, that there are not many electric vehicles of that much lower cost. That could be an
and
issue.
I can see in the chat there that over a lifetime, I guarantee you it's less over the lifetime with the gas and the maintenance costs. I can attest to that. But again, we've got availability problems right now. So I could promote it until the cows come home, but if you can't get your hands on one, then you know.
The only other thing that I'll say to that is that, well, here, let me.
Oops, you muted yourself.
You're muted now.
We lost you, Ben.
There you go.
Okay. You could go to any number of websites right now that are used car finding, you know, type in the model, type in how many miles of a radius, and you can find literally hundreds of used warranted electric cars. That's how I found mine, California, less than $10,000. And that was almost 8 years ago.
Oh, that's great. Well, if you have resources that you would like for us to promote, send them along to me.
Sure.
I'd be happy to, you know, as long as it doesn't have any particular company, I can't promote any one company or anything like that. But if you have resources, I'd be happy to add it to our website or add it to our outreach materials.
Super. Well, you're keeping our attention quite a bit, Natalie. We're on the last lap here. It's got about 10 minutes before we'll close. So let's see. I'll bring up, Dan also pointed out that a bicycle takes a lot less space on the road and in parking than a car does. And
I mean, cars in general have, you know, issues with, there are multiple issues as it relates. And I do like to promote, you know, the city and the county working to try to make our infrastructure such that it's actually built for people rather than cars, which is a huge challenge because planners don't really think that way. So I'm working really hard to try to help change that mindset. And I think that is a big part of what we need to do. I personally love riding my bike, but I don't really feel safe doing it. And until I do, I probably won't do it so much, even though I'm promoting it, you know. And so we have to make it safer. We have to do things. And I would encourage you to really get involved with, especially with the cities. The city has a great mobility plan, Move Tucson. They just need to start implementing it. And if they do that, I think we will have a city that that will move people instead of just moving cars.
I'm so glad to hear that the Plan Tucson's got a real promise in it. What can we do to help it get actualized?
I think, providing feedback to elected officials is always really helpful. And letting them know what you want to see, and being aware of kind of what their plan is called Move Tucson. And it is a plan that's very focused on having infrastructure such that we have better resources for people to get outside of their car and get around in other ways. It's an excellent plan. But at this point in time, it's just a plan, and there are challenges to that. And I think that it's just a matter of the city being aware that people actually do want to see maybe less lanes. They, promote those road diets, protected bike lanes, connected sidewalks, those types of things. Transit that is more frequent. So letting them know that that's what you want. And there's a lot of outreach opportunities. They do a lot of public outreach on various plans, various projects. You can stay informed on their website and provide your feedback. They are frequently looking for feedback. And so providing that feedback, I think, is extremely helpful. So staying involved with that and making sure that the people that you're voting for support the same things that you do.
Well, thank you, Natalie. That's a great encouragement to all of us. Just, I'm going to open up. Let's wait for maybe 10 seconds and see if anybody else would like to put in a last question.
I just wanted to point out a link that I put in the chat. There's a chart for the impact of the different modes of transportation, including electric cars, if you want to check that out.
Thank you, Jana.
The motorcycle one's interesting to me, because motorcycles are in the same category as a lawnmower. So I'm a little surprised by that one, but everything else looks about right to me. That's a good chart. I like that.
Natalie, are you saying that the chart puts the motorcycle in the wrong place, or it's just in a surprising
It just
place?
looks a little small to me, but I'm not exactly sure how it's calculated. But yeah, motorcycles are engines that have no pollution control device at all on them, just very similar to a lawnmower. So definitely not doing the environment or yourself any favors by riding a motorcycle. But it's interesting to see that difference there with the Tesla versus the average Victorian car.
So Laura Key was asking, this might be out of your bailiwick, but what's the latest on buses remaining free in Tucson? Do we have any...
I think, was there discussion at City Council while we were talking? Wasn't there a City Council meeting also at this time?
Yeah.
So I think at this point, I know that it's free until the end of June. And as far as I know, I've heard some good news that it might go just through the grapevine, it might go longer than that. But I don't work at the city, so I am not in that. I don't know any more than you do. And also they don't know, because they haven't decided. They have to decide, the City Council, what they want to do. But I think at this point, it's going to be hard to go back. That's what I think. I feel very hopeful.
There was a rally today on that.
Yeah, it's great that we've got that Zero Fares group and is promoting that, and there's a lot of support to keep it free. So I think the odds are pretty good that it'll stay free. That's just my guess, but I think the odds are pretty good.
Yeah, Dan comments that the mayor is definitely wishing it to happen. It's the federal funds may be an issue. Let's round up with looks like Trace had one more question, or is that Paula?
Actually, it's for me. When you were talking earlier a lot about the Clean Air Act, I was just wondering if there's any perspective or insights about the future of the Clean Air Act, if it seems to be safely entrenched, or if there's anything we should do other than telling our elected federal elected officials that they jolly well better not do anything to, except strengthen it perhaps?
Yeah, I think that if you're gonna see changes to it, I know of no risk that it will go away. It's had too big of an impact. It is a piece of, legislation that you can just see dramatic changes since it's been implemented. So I don't think there's any risk of it going away. The changes that I see are really related to those standards becoming more stringent and the arguments that people have for or against that. So lowering those standards to make them more protective of public health. That's the changes that they, basically argue over. The act itself hasn't been amended since 1993, I think. So it's still kind of stayed the same. The standards within the act changed, but the act itself is still protecting the same things. And now with the Inflation Reduction Act, it did give them the federal government authority to regulate greenhouse gas emissions. So that for a long time before that was not a possibility unless they were to revise or amend the Clean Air Act. And they embedded that, as I understand it, into that act, which allows them to now regulate things like methane and carbon dioxide, whereas before that was not allowed. So I don't think you have to worry at all about it going away.
Well, but maybe it's important to make sure that they don't do anything to reduce the regulation of greenhouse gases and only strengthen those, because
Yes, I think that is true.
Reduction.
And just so you know, the state has a rule on the books that we cannot regulate greenhouse gas emissions. So if the state will not allow localities, nor will they allow themselves to regulate greenhouse gas emissions. So any sort of regulations as it relates to those emissions are going to have to come from the federal government in the state of Arizona.
Oh, wow.
So I think really I would put obviously you want to vote for the people who align with your environmental values. But really your emphasis should be on the state more than anything, because they are our biggest hurdle.
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Natalie. And Dan just points out, I'm inferring that he is hoping the Supreme Court will not do anything that would restrict the EPA's ability to regulate pollutants. Someone might try to get a case before the court.
There is a case they're supposed to be
cases.
hearing. Yeah, there's one that's coming up. They're supposed to be hearing that could potentially result in all agencies, not just the EPA, but all federal executive branch agencies not having the ability to impose regulations unless Congress specifically authorizes them to, which would make life really terrible.
Yeah. It's difficult to keep up with all the court cases because everything that happens as it relates to these acts usually gets challenged in court, which is why it often takes so long for things to actually come to fruition one way or another. So I'm sure that will continue. These will be duked out in the courtrooms, and we'll have to see how they play out. It's good to stay involved and keep up with it, and just educate yourself on who you're voting for. And make sure we're getting the people in there who we want to actually protect our health.
Well, thank you, Natalie. Ending with the word on education. I know that that's a through line for you, and we will do our best to be one more channel to get the word out in little bits and pieces, so people keep aware of how much we can each do to improve air quality or to improve air quality policy and practice. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Say again?
Thank you for having me.
Oh, so good to have you. And we look forward to the next meeting, which will be with an NRDC person, talking about waste issues, as I understand, which is a big concern of Sustainable Tucson. We've got a very active committee on zero waste. Dwayne, who's here, is active with the Energy Transformation Committee. If you're not involved in a committee yet, couldn't give you a better recommendation than either energy transformation or zero waste.